What about you? Okay, we're back on the Peugeot. I think this is the third part and last part of the car that's been around all the houses, and it's finally back here to get the timing sorted. So, quick recap in case you didn't see the previous two videos. This is a Peugeot 308. It has an N14 BMW Mini engine in it, and it has had a new timing chain fitted, and ever since then he's had drivability problems, rough idle, and it throws a P2191, I think it is, mixture regulation fault code. It's been to 3 garages. First garage done the timing chain, second garage walnut blasted the intake valves, and the third garage reconditioned the turbo. It's now with me, and we can clearly see that the timing on the intake cam is off. I have seen this problem before after timing chains have been fitted to this engine that haven't been tensioned correctly, and we're not going to do a full timing chain job. We're just going to re-time it. I have the inlet manifold off, as you can see there, but that was because there was a lot of pipes and there was a vacuum solenoid that wasn't connected correctly. There was a lot of stuff just hanging around. A lot of cables weren't clipped, and I cleaned this bottle out here, and we may change the coolant for them as well. And so after talking to the customer and looking at the sump, it appeared to me that the sump had not been removed. So while we were waiting on the bolts coming, which have now arrived, but while we're waiting them coming, we'll pull the sump off. So that's the oil pan off, lovely and clean, and all our gasket material removed from it there. Anybody does that knows how difficult that is. Well, it's not difficult, it just takes you ages, you know. So I'll get you up in here. We found a few particles that was residing up in there, and give the maintenance service a good clean there, and I split the exhaust just to get the exhaust out of the road so it came out easier. You might be able to take these pans off without doing that, but I did it to give you a bit more room, you know. So we'll get you over to here and we'll see what we have found in the oil strainer. These were all in the oil strainer, and yeah. So there's our wee tooth. You get a good shot on the back of my hand there, if I can get it. Yeah, there we are. So there's our wee tooth, and that fits onto there. You know. So, and a few bits of plastic fished out from the oil strainer there. That's now clear. So give everything a good out clean with brake cleaner up and around the oil pump. We've even cleaned out where the oil filter goes. So we'll get that back on again. So again, a quick reminder, we can clearly see with our locking tools fitted that there's a very large gap here. So that inlet cam is sitting back the way, and that's what happens whenever these timing chains are fitted and they're not tensioned correctly. So we have a crank pin in the flywheel, and that makes the pistons all level at a midpoint position. You can put a wee screwdriver, a wee flag on it there just to prove that. And you know you're on the right stroke because there's numbers embossed in the camshafts here and here, so they are uppermost. The other thing is that this is flat. This flat bit is uppermost. The underside of that's domed, so if you're on the wrong stroke, this won't be showing, and the numbers, the embossing on the cams won't be showing either. Other wee thing to do, so there's a couple of places I see a lot of videos on the YouTube, and since I've posted a couple of videos on this, it comes up in the recommendations, and you see people counter holding with this bit at the back, this one here. So you do not want the counter hold with that. So what you can do, however, I think the book says that you can put 15 to 20 newton meters of force on that and you're okay, but any more than that and you run the risk of spinning that. So that is what the camshaft sensor is looking at, so you don't want to move that. But what you want to do is just rock that back and forward, and there's a wee tiny bit of movement in it, but that's telling you that your Vanos unit is pinned. If that'll just turn on its own, that means that Vanos unit isn't pinned. This particular one has a Vanos unit or a VVT device on the intake, and there's none in the exhaust. The N18 engine, for example, will have Vanos on both, but same procedure applies, and they're pretty much the same. There's just different locking kits. If you have variable valve lift, which you'll easily recognize, there's a whole bunch of springs here for the variable valve lift. So there are two different things. So, okay, first of all, what we're going to do is we're going to loosen the two bolts here, and that means we can get our locking kit in here. Because at the minute it ain't going to fit because there's a big massive gap. But before I do that, I'm going to show one of the subscribers asked about the wiring at the back of this. So before I go any further, I'm just going to show him that. Right, it's going to be a bit shaky here because it's handheld, and that's our vacuum solenoid. And he was asking about the wiring. So the longer wire that goes onto this loom here goes on to that vacuum solenoid. There is a shorter wire on this purge control valve, and that goes on to this loom. So this sort of inner loom, if you want to call it that. So, and that plug will fit onto there, so you can swap them to about. But you know, you'll find that the difference is the wires are different lengths. You can also see here there's a wee bit of rubbing has been going on, and it's not through the insulation, but when I first took this and that off, that popper wasn't in. So there's a lot of wires here haven't been clipped. Now I've unclipped these, I've unclipped a load of stuff, but this was unclipped and the inlet was rubbing on the wiring there. So that's another wee thing we'll just fix up. We'll put a wee bit of that adhesive tape on and make sure these are clipped in. So I have the inlet manifold off this, and the only reason I did that was because this vacuum solenoid was hanging about and fluttering about all over the place. We took another couple of components out. I have the oil control solenoid out, which is in here in the back. So it goes in that hole there. But I'm just going to leave it out. I'm just going to leave the inlet manifold off for the moment, and that's the tensioner. So make sure your tensioner, by the way, has a hole. Well, it's not a through hole, but it's a divot in it. If that's just flush, you need to change that tensioner. If you're putting a new timing chain on, you get a new tensioner anyway. But if it hasn't got that, that's an old style tensioner. The other thing about it is I won't be changing this seal ring, but these there was an era of cars where the oil flew out of that seal ring. Now the original torque spec for this here was 65 newton meters. That has changed to 80 newton meters, so it's an extra wee hump on it there, and that's I take it that's because of that oil leaking problem. The oil flying out of that tensioner there. So that was another problem with the BMW Minis. About 2012, 2013 sort of time that was found. So yeah, and that manifold is off. I just took it off, and I may as well leave it off to do this procedure because it'll just make it a wee bit clearer for me. Okay, back to our retiming procedure. So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to loosen these two bolts. So what we need to do is counter hold, and as I said, you do not counter hold with that back hex. You counter hold with where the lockers go in. Now I find a shifter is the best to do that. I think it's about 30 mil you know, spanner size, but the 30mm is a wee bit loose, so unless an imperial size fits, but you know, a shifter, a good big shifter, and it clears the head, no problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that off camera, because I don't know how you noticed or not, but this is glass here. So that's the windscreen coming down into the sort of engine bay. So I want my hands clear and I want plenty of room. I'm going to put something in here just in case, you know, the ratchet or something slips off this here or something. Hard fear to hitting this because it'll break on the windscreen. Okay, so that's our cam shaft bolts loosened, and you may notice the cam then has fallen back that way here, and the exhaust has fallen back that way. So it's just getting in the arrest position with you know, the springs of the valves. So because the pistons are in midpoint position, there's no problem, but all the valves will probably be now closed. So what we can then use this back hex here, this rear hex, and this is the time when we use that. So what we need to do is get a wee spanner in there, and I have a wee spanner, just fits great for it. I had to actually fail it a bit to get it to fit. So I don't know where I got that spanner from, but so we'll just move that back round into position, and that'll allow our locking kit in, and that fits nicely there. So I'll just get, well, we'll put the other one in while we're at it. And so same over here for the intake. We need to bring that to us because that's falling away, and put that around the right way. I'll be holding it. So we'll get that into the correct position there, and we'll get bolts into our locking kit. And in this particular one, on this N14 engine, there's an extra wee bit goes into that hole there and holds that bit there down, because there's no bolt hole in this bit, but there's a wee clamp that goes in. So we'll do that now. Okay, so our locking tool's fitted, and fitted perfectly there. So there's a wee Allen goes into that one there, and that just clamps down on there, because there's no fixing hole on this side on this particular engine. The other ones do, some of the other ones do. We've bolt on there. Now this one here, what you have to do is you have to sort of take the tension off the cam. So you need to put your wee spanner in the back there and sort of take the tension off the cam and line that up, because that's the cam's trying to push that back all the time. So you might think that bolt hole isn't lining up the best, but you know, this kit, pretty good kit. I've never had to do any modifications or elongating the holes or anything like that, and fits pretty good. So people might struggle with these timing, and they might blame the kit and they go, "Oh, it's an aftermarket thing. It's not right." But you know, if the springs of the valves are pushing on this, you know, you'll struggle to get that, and you certainly don't want to force that in or around it. It has to go in nice and straight. Just line it up by eye and have those loose, and until you get them all in, and you tighten them all down. So that's us in time, and we'll carry on. So when you do that, you can do a quick check, make sure your camshafts are uppermost, make sure the writing is up facing you, and like there's no way you'll do a full rotation, or you know, you'll put them in any other way. They just fall to the side a bit, and you just put them back into line again. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take these two wheels off, and first of all then I'm going to take that off, but before I do that I'm going to loosen off my tensioner and just back it out. I'm not going to take it out completely in this one. If you were doing a complete chain, you would clearly, you know, have to take it all out and stuff, but I've done these before, I've retained these before, and I can get away with just backing it out, you know, till it's still on the last thread, and that, you know, loosens this chain up, and that will allow me to take the guide off. I do not take the guide off with the chain under tension, which it is because the tensioner's in, so it'll try and push that up. So there is a belly on this. As I said, some of the other procedures that I have seen on YouTube, there is usually somewhere along the line where the guy makes a mistake, and you know, they tension the chain with the guide off and then they put the guide on last, stuff like that. This guide is pushing down on that chain, so you know, you put the guide on when there's no tension on the chain. Okay, so if the tensioner backed out, you can tell you're nearly out whenever it gets you know, sort of loose. There's it there, pretty much backed out. So I can just turn that with my hand. Just hold these pipes out of the way so you can see. So I can just turn that with my hand. It'll actually come out. But I'm just going to hold it in there with a thread. And here's what we're left with. So there's no force then on this guide, on this chain guide here. You know, so everything will all turn. So that's us. We can pull the guide off. Okay, that's the guide removed. I'm going to show you something here. So, you know, just to remind you, this is a timing chain that's been fitted by somebody else. I'm removing these pieces, but I'm going to reuse them. So this is a new timing chain kit, and new guides and new tensioner and all that, but it just hasn't been done correctly. So here's a wee bit of evidence that it may not be done correctly. So you see the way the aluminium is all marked with the bolts there. So that's the 2 bolts out of it. I'll just put one down. So don't want to drop it. So if I look, that bolt, it doesn't go into the hole anymore. I have to sort of screw it into the hole, you know. So it's either been over tightened. So you see that doesn't go through there. So it's either been over tightened, or that guide has been put on with the chain tensioned. So whenever you put the guide on, then it's pushing down on that bit of the chain there whenever the chain is tensioned, and you're pulling that down on the bolts. And they were quite tight with the chain loose. Yeah. So the other thing I can see is, you can see, I can get into the light for you, and you see there the aluminium's actually being pushed down into the bolt hole, you know. So that's no big deal. I can live with that, okay. But I'll maybe just ream these holes out here so that I don't have any diffs putting these bolts back in again. And they're only 8 Newton meters on them. It's not very much. I might clean them up and put a wee bit of thread locker on it. But yeah, so that may be the cause of this problem, or you know, contributed to the cause of the problem. You know, so there we go. So what we'll have now is we have a slack chain, and these wheels can turn on the cams. Now, okay, if you look at nearly any procedure, it talks about a pre-tensioner. And I'll just get that out of the kit and show you it. So what's this thing here? This is a pre-tensioner, and that goes in where the tensioner goes. So instead of your tensioner going in, you put that in. And what all the instructions say, you tighten this to 0.6 of 1 Newton meter. So like half a Newton meter, and that's a pre-tensioner, and then you tighten the bolts up. Well, this is the big mistake. You just don't do that. Now, if you do a lot of timing chains and a lot of timing belts that have unkeyed pulleys like this, now, just to remind you as well, I'm not touching the crankshaft in this. This crank is solid. It's, you know, it's fully tightened. I'm just adjusting the timing here. So if you're going to do a timing chain on one of these N14, N12, N13, N18 engines, you know, have all 3 loose, and you know, when you're doing your tension. But anyway, but it doesn't matter for this, because all I'm doing is adjusting the, you know, getting this background into the position of the cams. I know that, you know, the crank's not going to move. The crank's pinned, so this does work no problem at all. In fact, when you put a timing chain on, you could actually do that, and you know, it wouldn't really make any difference. On some of the older procedures, you know, before they come up with this contraption, what they actually said to do was to drill a hole in here and take that plunger out and put a bolt in there. So put a bolt right through and screw that tensioner in. Now, what that was to do, it wasn't the pre-tension in the chain at all. What it was to do was you screw this in and you screw this here in, you know, and whenever you mark it up to that 0.6 Newton meter, which is just sort of basically till it stops, and then you measure this bit, you take this back out again and you measure this bit, and the figure given is 68 mil. If that is 68 mil or over, because the further it goes in the longer that gets, then you've too much stretch, as it were, in the chain. The chains don't stretch, they're not an elastic band. What that means is, when we say stretch, there's wear in the chain. Every link and every wee every wee pin has wear in it, so it has elongated. They don't stretch like. But anyway, so that was a gauge to see whether you needed a new chain or not. That's what that was. And as I say, they said they drill a hole in that and all there. So like, nobody ever did that. If it needs a chain and the chain is rattling, put a new chain on it, and that's it, end off. So anyway, tensioning procedure, don't pre-tension, just a lot of rubbish, So what I'm doing here is the exact same philosophy and ethos that I would do any chain with, and any any timing belt that has unkeyed pulley wheels. So pulley wheels that are free to turn. Now the other thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to take both these pulley wheels off, stick a pry bar in or something like that to hold this chain so it doesn't drop down. I don't think it'll drop anywhere quickly anyway, but I don't want it dropping off the bottom of the cam cog or the crank cog. So, and what I'm going to do, the reason why I'm doing that is I want to take these pulley wheels off and have them completely degreased. So the faces where that mates on, this is held into position to that cam by friction. So it's the clamping force that's holding it on. So you do not want any lubricant, and namely oil. Now see, when I take that off, that has oil going into it. That there will have oil in it. There'll be loads of oil there. So especially this one, anything with the VVTs, loads of oil. And this in here, all cleaned up. As I say, all these components are going to be reused. They've already been in the engine. They're pretty fresh. They're pretty new. Nothing's being replaced. It's going to go back on again. So I'm going to do that now. Right, so that's our exhaust pulley wheel off, and there we go. And just holding the chain in there with that, so just so it doesn't drop down. So that then is discarded, so we don't reuse that. And what I'm going to do is clean up this until there's no oil on it at all, and that's great. It's marvelous. And then this face in here, and you got a point and stick here. This face in here, just all clear of oil. And maybe get a wee scoot up the cam with the airline as well, just to blow the oil out, and with some brake clean on a rag, just nice and clean. And I'm going to put that cog back on again, finger tight, and then do the same with our mate over there. Right, so our mating surfaces have been cleaned, degreased, pulley wheels back on one at a time. So put the exhaust one back on again, then took the inlet Vanos unit off and done the same thing, and 2 new bolts. So the one for the Vanos is a longer bolt, and the torque specs is different to the exhaust. Just one wee point to note, you want these here to still rotate here, but if this is, you don't want that, if that's backed out very, very slightly, you see the way that'll rock there. So you don't want that. So just up with your finger, just so that it's, it's mating really, and no sort of lateral play in any of the 2 units. There's a wee tiny bit in that, so I'll just, yeah, still turn nicely. So with the chain slack, we can go ahead and put our upper chain guide on. Okay, so that's us ready for the upper chain guide. Now, and this one here, as we saw earlier on, there was that wasn't flush, so I've given that a wee bit of a dress there, and I've put a wee round file in there so that they fit nicely in there unimpeded. So I just double check the torque setting, 9 Newton meters in those, and I'm going to put a wee bit of blue thread lugger on it. So dead easy with our chain slack, and that's super important that that chain is slack, and we're going to fit our guide. As you can see, the chain isn't impeding the fitting of that. Okay, upper guide in, and that's it, torqued to 9 Newton meters. So we'll just reach down here and I'll screw in, and you can see we're starting to take up the tension. So with our wheel still, you know, able to rotate, that's going to take up the slack in the chain. So we'll get that torqued up, and that 80 Newton meters and that. Right, so our tensioner is fully home, and it's torqued to 80 Newton meters. Now, what I'm going to show you now is a wee trick you can do, and you don't need to do this, but these bolts are one use only bolts. You know, maybe not see that one there. One use only stretch bolts. So once you put the angle on them, this one's 180 degrees and 90 degrees. Once you put an angle on, that's it, you're done. You know, if you need to adjust anything further, you need to sort of change them again. So you know a couple of bolts. So what you can do is, starting at the inlet first, the initial torque is 20 Newton meters on both of these. So what you can do is just torque them to the 20. So starting with inlet, there's 20 Newton meters, and there's 20 Newton meters in that one. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to remove the lockers that are on the cam, remove the flywheel pin, remove all the protective bits that I have in the spark plug wells here, and don't really have to do that, like, but I'm going to rotate her over at least twice, probably 4 times. So with everything unlocked, I'm going to rotate her before I put the big angle on it. Well, this one here is 90, that one there's 180, and I'm just going to make sure it lines up. If I need to adjust it, if I do a minor adjustment, then I can do that, no problem, with you know, because these haven't been stretched yet. So the 20 Newton meters will clamp that okay, you know, it'll not slip, especially with the surfaces degreased and cleaned and all. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, we've rotated the crank 4 times there, so we're just loosely fitted. Well, I've one bolt in there, but I've fitted the locking tools, as you can see. Now you can see a wee gap. So if I put in our feeler gauges here and stack our feeler gauges, that's it stacked at 1.4 mil. It's about 1.4 mil there. If I go any higher, I'll stack it to 1.5 mil. Let's see. It's starting to lift it. So hopefully you can see that. Okay, without my hand on the road, because I'm not watching you at the minute. So that's 1.5 there. So it's 1.4 mil of a gap. Now, we'll just bring you out again on here, and we'll just show you some destructions here. Not that we often follow the instructions, because we didn't follow them at all here, but just specs is all we're interested in. So it says measure the value in the exhaust camshaft. If it's below 1.9, timing is okay. Now, okay, in my experience, see the exhaust one? The exhaust one is grand, because that is the untensioned side. So, you know, that wee bit of tolerance there is just, you know, your tensioner moving in and out, and, you know, the chain isn't a solid object. There's movement in the chain, so you're going to get that slight, discrepancy. The big thing is, see if your locking tools go on at all. When we started this at first, that locking tool there, wouldn't go on. So, we had to loosen the cams and pull it back to get the bolts to go in. So, if the locking tools fit on, you're usually, near enough the money. So the intake camshaft there is below 2.5 mil, and there's a wee picture of the guy doing that there. So we're at 1.4, so I could call that timed perfectly, but because I'm a bit of a perfectionist, I might actually loosen that intake off and rotate it another 4 times and see if we can get that to meet up. But that's probably the best you'll get it, so it's not a that'll do, and it's not because the locking kits are a wee bit off. It's just because the chain's not solid, and the tensioner isn't a solid object either, so it's going to move in. Plus you might have in your key, in your flywheel, you might have a slight tiny wee rock as well. So the main thing is, if you can get them locking tools in again, even though you see that wee gap. Now, as I say, when we started off, that gap was 15 mil or 16 mil or something like that. So we've got it down to 1.4 mil, and the car will run good at that. I can assure you. And as I say, the exhaust one is always correct. It's just that wee gap you need to be looking for whenever you're rotate the engine up. So I'll just move you a second. Hopefully this doesn't get flagged because there's a lot of music in the background and I have no control over. So I might have to voice over this. But anyway, so these are still only at 20 Newton meters, and they, I can tell you that they have not moved. They can't move, So that's still 20 Newton meters. That's still 20 meters. If you find that gap is still too big, if it's 5 mil or something like that, it gives you the scope then to readjust this, and all you need to do is just loosen that inlet, loosen that torque that there, and then that'll let your timing tools fit into place, and bolt them. Put that back to 20 Newton meters again, and do it again. So I might actually do it again here, just for the hell of it. Well, scratch that idea doing that again. So I just actually went to tighten these down here, and whenever we tighten them down, it tightens down snug. So I'm not going to get any better than that. So that's it. Okay, so we're happy enough then. The lockers are in and they're tightened up and everything is in line. We've already rotated the engine 4 times, so now we're going to put the stretch on our stretch bolts. Now, by far the easiest way, as I say, some of them videos that I sort of watched or half watched, you seen people mucking about with angle gauges and all, and they are more of a curse because you could lose your position very easily. This way here, we tip X mark. You can have a couple of goes at it. You can put it a quarter way around and then stop, take a breather or whatever, and you know where you are. So you've got a start point, you have a finish point, and you know where you are. Just let the tip X dry a wee bit, or I don't use tip X, I use paint pens. But okay, that's basically it. This one here, they're both still at 20 Newton meters, which we had originally, so that hasn't been touched. Our lockers fit. Just another wee thing, just the wee discrepancy of the the 1.5 mil. This actually does rock on the pin slightly in the Vanos unit. So I'll maybe just demonstrate that. So you will actually get, you maybe can't see it, but you will actually get there's a wee tiny bit of movement in that cam whenever you put a wee bit of tension on it. So you're just taking up the slack of the pin. So you feel a wee bit of movement in the bolt. But anyway, so there's no particular order here, but I like to do the tension side first, the inlet. every sort of procedure instruction that I've ever looked at, it doesn't say make sure you do that or whatever. It just says tighten the inlet, then the exhaust. So, you know, we'll just follow that. I don't really think there's a reason, or I'm not too sure, to be honest with you. But I just like to do it that way. You tighten the side with a tensioner on it, and then so whenever that's tight, it's not pulling on the chain whenever you do this one. But the cams are locked, so nothing should move, you know, anyway. So, you know, it shouldn't make any difference, really, you know. So we're just going to give this a hoof round here. And you see a wee bit of movement in the pin there? You see that? So there was your 1.4 mil probably, right there. So we'll give it another wee going. And just look at our mark. We know where we are. We're not even halfway there. So, give it another. It's starting to get tight now, boys, I'm telling you. So, give it another wee going. Getting there. So, that's why I turned it over with it only on the 20 Newton meters, so that if I had to adjust it, then, you know, you can do that. You just loosen it off, put in your, you know, move the cam around so your locker fits. Lock her back up again, put her back up to 20 Newton meters, and away you go. We're near our kit. We're cooking with gas, almost. What's that look like? Does that look good to you? Good to me? Nor wee tiny wee blonde one here. That's perfect, if I do say so myself. So you see that wee bit of movement there. So there's it there. You see it now. So that's actually the tensioner moving in, you know, because I can see down below here. I can see down below the, you know, the guide pulling in on that, and then the tensioner bring it back. So, okay, it's maybe not rocking the pin at all. Anyhow, right, we'll do this one, the exhaust here, and this again 20 Newton meters, but this time it's not all the way around to the bottom. It's just a quarter turn, and the two bolts are different. One is longer than the other one. One for the Vanos. So if you have two Vanoses, you know, the two bolts will be the same and they'll both be 180 degrees, you know. So there we go. What's that look like? Look at you, are we her? Perhaps. I guess just maybe, you know. Didn't need touched again at all. Anyway, there you go, torqued up. Okay, now what you can do is you remove these lockers, take out your crank pin, throw it over a couple of times, and just check. But I would suggest that you'll never get with the timing tools in, you know, loose, that, you know, there'll always be a wee tiny gap. So in this case, I got it first time, but maybe that's because it's a new chain kit or whatever. I don't know. I've done this before where I had to retime cars, and it took a couple of goes. So, you know, that's just the way it is. There's just, you know, there's movement in the tensioner, there's movement in the chain. There's, you know, so sometimes you'll get a gap there, maybe 5 mil, something like that, and then you just loosen that off, do it again. So that's why I'm saying no procedure will say just turn it over with those at 20 Newton meters. They'll all say put the full angular torque on it, and then turn it over, and then see if you're right. You know what I mean? So you don't want to do that. Right, so that's my locking tools lifted off, and we're going to pull the crank pin, and I might just for a giggle turn it over twice just to be sure, and just set them on again. Make sure that gap is acceptable. You may notice if you were following the videos, I have cleaned that coolant bottle out. It was absolutely manking, and from a look of the coolant is in this engine is scrap. We're also, the sump is empty of oil. So in this car, you know, if you have a broken chain guide and all, you might want to do that, and you do want to do that, because there'll be bits of guide in the oil strainer, as I showed you earlier on. Now, another wee thing that you need to do, I don't really need to do it, but in this case, I have more things to do here. I have the inlet manifold to put on and a whole lot of wires to connect up and all that nonsense before I sort of really go any further. But what you want to do, and there's another thing that nobody does and you never see anybody doing, and it's in no procedure or nothing. If you put a new chain on and a new guide or whatever, and whether your sump's empty or not, doesn't matter, but you want to get whatever oil you're going to put in it and douse it before you put the rocker cover on. Pour it all over that chain and let it run down all the guides and stuff like that, and just get it wet, you know, and you know, a wee bit over the camshaft. Now I'm going to do that here as well, even though this chain is, you know, wet. It is, you know, it's oily, but if you put a new chain on, it won't be, and all the guides are dry and everything. So just pour oil, like half a litre or something like that, of the oil that you're going to put in, and away you go. If you haven't got the sump off and you're not going to change the oil, you know, you might want to suck a wee bit out or take a wee bit out of it or something, and do that. You want to get oil, you want to get that chain oily, and don't rely on the, you know, on the initial startup. It'll rattle like crazy, and there you go. So just do that before you put the rocker cover on, and before you start it up. The other thing is that I'll probably, because this sump and this, I've cleaned out the oil filter and stuff, I'll probably start this with the coils disconnected to get a wee bit of oil pressure up in around it. So, well, not start it, but I'll turn it over with the coils disconnected, and away you go. So, anywho, coolant, I'm gonna drop a coolant into this. So I spent ages cleaning that out. Took the crud in that bottle was desperate. Now, it wasn't oily or nothing. It's just baked coolant. It's just, I don't know where this thing's running low on coolant or whatever and all that. It's obviously because it's been running wrong. Might have had a factor. You know, it might have been getting a wee bit too warm. Maybe I don't know. But nevertheless, the coolant looks terrible. So I'm going to drop a coolant out of it and fill her full of water, maybe put a wee touch of rod flush in her, and get her up and running, and then empty all that out, do that a couple of times, and then put proper coolant in it for him, because I don't want the car to start this car up and it's just going to muck up that bottle again. Anyway, listen, that's it for this. I'm not going to show any more. It's just an assembly job after this. There's a few more wee things just to tidy up, and I may have to voice over this. If this turns out to be a voiceover, then that's all right. There's music going on outside. It's just started just as I went to film this, and it's VE Day, and they're blaring music all over the place, and they seem to be having a laugh. They're still under lockdown, and they're all keeping their distance, but they're just blasting music out, and it's beautiful weather, and why not? And just right. The occasion is right for that, for sure. So many thanks for watching. Hope you get something out of it. All the best, and bye bye.